17 minutes into my stroke, my daughter-in-law stole my credit card. She blew $144,000 in one day. The next day, she texted me a selfie with her Dubai lover. Spending hubby's inheritance early. Don't die before I get back, Susan. Winky, kissy face. I smiled behind the oxygen mask. She had no idea it was already over. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here to listen. Stay here with me through this whole story and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my stories travel. The nurses thought my smile meant I was improving. Recovery, they whispered. Positive signs. They didn't know I was smiling because Natalie had just revealed herself completely. After 3 years of careful manipulation, she'd finally shown her cards, thinking I was too weak to play mine. You should know, Natalie didn't use just any credit card. She used the one tied to the business Charles and I built from nothing. And that was her first mistake. That little Dubai selfie, that was the moment she signed her own downfall. And honey, you better believe I kept every receipt. She thought she was living her best life. She had no idea it was already over. So if you want to know how she went from a luxury suite to handcuffs, come back with me. It would be 3 days before I could hold a phone. 4 before the physical therapist helped me sit up long enough to check my email. But when I finally did, there it was. 8:42 p.m. sent the day of my stroke. Subject line, unusual activity detected. Whitmore and Associates Design Holdings. My good hand shook as I clicked to expand. The total made my heart monitor spike. $144,000. Cleared. No authorization requested. The ICU monitor beeped steadily beside me. Natalie had been there when it happened, my devoted daughter-in-law, riding in the ambulance, holding my hand. Michael told me later how she'd insisted on staying those first critical hours, how she'd only left when the doctors assured her I was stable. What he didn't know was that she'd left with my wallet. 17 minutes into my stroke, while nurses were still running tests and Michael was filling out paperwork, she'd slipped my corporate card from the purse she'd so helpfully secured for me. My son Michael would be devastated. My sweet, socially awkward boy who still didn't understand why beautiful women suddenly noticed him at charity galas after his father's obituary listed our net worth. But devastation was better than destruction. And Natalie had been destroying him slowly, one manipulation at a time. Dubai Atlantis Royal, $18,000. Heritage Gold and Diamonds, $42,000. Emirates Private Jet Charter, $35,000. Palazzo Versace Spa, $8,000. Client Entertainment, well, $41,000. My vision swam, but not from the stroke this time. The charges had all hit within hours. First-class ticket to Dubai at 11 p.m. the night of my stroke. Private jet charter confirmed at midnight. Hotel charges beginning the next morning. She hadn't just stolen from me. She'd fled the country while I was still in critical care, leaving Michael to believe she was too distraught to stay, needed her sister's comfort in Boston. But there was no sister in Boston. There was a lover in Dubai. Then my phone buzzed. Another message from Natalie, this time a video, her and some man, both in gold-threaded robes, toasting champagne on a private balcony. The Burj Al Arab glittered behind them. His hand was on her thigh. The caption read, "Michael thinks I'm at a wellness retreat. Thanks for funding my actual therapy, Susan." Heart emoji, kiss emoji. I screenshot everything, the charges, the messages, the video. My physical therapist thought I was struggling with the phone because of motor control. I wasn't struggling. I was documenting because the card she'd used wasn't just any business card. It was one still tied to active IRS quarterly audits, one that required dual authorization for anything over $10,000. Authorization she'd somehow bypassed, which meant she'd either forged signatures or found another way to impersonate a company officer. The rehabilitation center's walls were beige and cheerless, but I barely noticed. All I could see was Natalie's plan crystallizing. She hadn't just stolen from me while I was incapacitated. She'd waited for the perfect moment when I was literally voiceless to execute something she'd been planning for months, maybe longer. Charles and I started Whitmore and Associates in 1978. 2 kids with art degrees and more ambition than sense. By the time he died 4 years ago, We had 12 employees and a client list that included 3 Fortune 500 companies. I couldn't bear to dissolve it completely after he passed. Too many memories, too much pride. So I kept the LLC active, kept one corporate card for final expenses, kept the books open in case I wanted to do one last project. Michael had helped me with the paperwork after his father's funeral. His name was listed as an authorized user, purely for emergency access. But Natalie, she'd never been added, never been authorized, never been given any legal right to that account, which meant every single charge she'd made wasn't just theft. It was wire fraud, identity theft, and because she'd crossed international borders, federal crime territory, I thought about calling Michael immediately. But then I remembered something from 2 months ago, before the stroke. Natalie had been unusually interested in our old business files, said she wanted to help organize them for tax purposes. She'd spent hours in Charles's old study going through papers. I'd thought she was being helpful, finally showing interest in the family legacy. Now I understood. She'd been studying our financial structure, learning about the corporate card's existence, figuring out where I kept it, planning for an opportunity. The physical therapist returned for my afternoon session, stretched my weak arm, tested my grip strength. She seemed pleased with my progress, said my determination was remarkable for someone my age, if only she knew what was driving that determination. Every exercise, every painful stretch, every exhausting repetition was fueled by one thought. I needed to get strong enough to handle what came next, because Natalie had made one fatal error in her perfect crime. She'd assumed a 71-year-old stroke victim would be too weak, too confused, too diminished to fight back. She'd counted on me being exactly what she'd been telling everyone I was becoming: senile, helpless, fading. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The woman who'd once stared down New York's toughest real estate developers, who'd built a company from scratch in an industry that didn't want women, who'd buried her husband but kept his dream alive. That woman was still here, just temporarily slowed. And Natalie's little Dubai adventure, that was about to become the most expensive vacation she'd ever take. Lying in that narrow rehabilitation bed, I had nothing but time to piece together 3 years of subtle cruelties. The Christmas, she'd given me a book about memory loss, just in case you ever need it, Susan, while handing Michael a Rolex. The Mother's Day dinner where she'd filmed me struggling to remember a neighbor's name, then posted it online with crying laughing emojis and the hashtag #JustSeniorMoments. The time she'd reorganized my medications and then told Michael she was concerned I was confusing my pills. Each incident seemed small, forgettable. Together, they painted a masterpiece of manipulation. I scrolled through my saved messages from her. I'd kept them all, some instinct making me document our interactions. "So cute how you still try to cook from scratch," she'd written after I'd spent 6 hours making Michael's birthday dinner. "Michael says you told the same story 3 times at lunch. Maybe we should look into memory care." That was after a perfectly normal meal where I'd mentioned our honeymoon in Venice exactly once. "Found some great assisted living places near us. Just thinking ahead, heart emoji." The pattern was clear now. She'd been building a narrative. The confused elder, the declining widow, the burden who needed managing. And Michael, my sweet, trusting boy who'd never learned to read people the way his father could, had believed every word. He'd started looking at me differently these past months, speaking slower, checking if I'd taken my medications, asking if I needed help with things I'd been doing for 50 years. But there was one message that stood out now, sent just a week before my stroke. "Dubai has the most amazing wellness retreats. You should treat yourself, Susan. You deserve some pampering after everything you've been through." I'd replied that international travel was too much at my age. She'd responded, "That's what we're here for. To help with the complicated stuff. You just rest and let us handle everything." Handle everything. She'd certainly done that. The same day she'd sent that message, I now realized she'd been in Charles's study again, looking for the corporate card I kept in his old desk, testing the expense portal passwords that Michael had carelessly written on a Post-it note years ago when helping me with quarterly filings. She'd probably booked the Dubai trip weeks in advance, knowing exactly when she'd strike. My phone buzzed again. Another photo from Natalie. This time she was wearing a diamond necklace that must have cost a fortune, standing in what looked like a private shopping suite. Your generosity is touching, Susan. Michael always said you had expensive taste. Guess it rubbed off. Wink emoji. The casual cruelty of it made my chest tighten, using my hospitalized state to mock me, spending money she'd stolen while I was learning to walk again, and invoking my son's name like he was complicit in this theft. I saved that photo too, added it to a folder I titled Evidence, because that's what this was now. Not a family dispute, not a misunderstanding, evidence in what would become either her destruction or mine. And despite the weakness in my body, despite the slurred speech and the trembling hands, I knew which one of us had been destroying things longer. She'd been playing this game for 3 years, but I'd been fighting battles since before she was born. 2 weeks into recovery, when I could finally sit at a computer for more than 10 minutes, I began my real investigation. The stroke had damaged my right side, but my left hand could still type, still click, still search. The night nurse thought I was doing cognitive exercises. I was doing forensic accounting. I logged into our business portal at 2 a.m. when the rehabilitation center was quiet, except for distant beeping and the shuffle of orthopedic shoes on linoleum. The full transaction history loaded slowly. 6 months, 8 months, a year. The Dubai splurge wasn't the beginning. It was the crescendo. Small charges first, but on different cards. The ones she'd had legitimate access to as Michael's wife, helping with his startup. $340 at Neiman Marcus, labeled client gifts. $580 at a high-end restaurant, business development. $1,200 at a spa, team morale building. Each one coinciding with Natalie's Instagram timeline. There she was at Neiman's, modeling a new bag, there at the restaurant, toasting with friends, there at the spa, #self-care, #blessed. Over the past 8 months, she'd stolen $67,000 through Michael's business accounts before her grand finale with my corporate card. $67,000 in careful, calculated increments. Never enough to trigger automatic alerts, always just under the thresholds that would require additional approval. She'd studied our systems like a surgeon studying anatomy, known exactly where to cut. But the corporate card, that was different. That was opportunity meeting preparation. She'd seen it in my purse a dozen times, known I kept it for final business expenses. And when I had my stroke, when she was right there playing the concerned daughter-in-law, she'd taken her chance. But she'd made mistakes. The metadata showed login times, IP addresses, device IDs. The earlier fraudulent charges from Michael's business accounts had been entered between 1 and 3 a.m. from the same laptop from my son's home network. While Michael slept, his wife had been methodically robbing his startup funds. But the Dubai charges? Those came from international IP addresses, her phone, a digital trail across the globe as she fled with my corporate card. The timing told the story. Hospital security footage at 6:17 p.m. showing her with my purse, airport purchase at 11 p.m., Dubai hotel charges starting the next morning. I cross-referenced every charge with her social media. The $3,400 earring she wore to her cousin's wedding, purchased 2 days before as vendor appreciation. The weekend spa trip she'd posted about, billed as executive retreat planning, she hadn't even tried to hide it, probably assuming I'd never check, or if I did, I'd be too confused to understand what I was seeing. My favorite discovery was a charge from 3 months ago, $8,000 to a luxury travel agency. The invoice details, which she'd forgotten to delete, showed a Dubai itinerary for 2, planned months in advance, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and a note in the booking, traveling as Mr. and Mrs. Anderson. Not her married name, not her maiden name, a fiction. Because the man in those golden robes wasn't just some random lover. This was a full relationship, complete with false identities and stolen funds. Michael called the next morning while I was struggling through speech therapy. The therapist held the phone to my ear since my right hand still couldn't grip properly. Mom, thank God you're okay. I've been trying to reach Natalie all night. My tongue felt thick, words coming slowly but deliberately. Where is she? I don't know. She left the hospital after you were stable, said she needed air, then texted me that she couldn't handle this, that she was going to her sister in Boston for a few days. But Mom, his voice cracked. Her sister called me. Natalie's not there, never went there, and there are charges on my business card and I can't reach her. Check your email. I managed. My email? Mom, what's going on? Just check. I'd sent him screenshots at 4 a.m. The charges. The Instagram posts from Dubai, she couldn't help herself, had to flaunt it. The video of Natalie with her lover, both in gold-threaded robes, toasting champagne on a private balcony. A man I recognize now, someone from the charity circuit, another regular at those galas where she'd first hunted Michael. Alexander something, old money, older wife, perpetual wandering eye. I heard him breathing on the other end, could picture him scrolling, his face changing as the truth registered. This has to be a mistake, he said finally. The corporate card? Mom, you probably gave her permission and forgot. You've been under so much stress since Dad died, and now with the stroke. No, I said, the word coming out sharp despite my struggles. She's been planning this. Mom, that's a serious accusation. Natalie loves you. She's always trying to help. She told me you've been confused lately, mixing up your medications, forgetting conversations. There it was, the narrative Natalie had built, now being wielded against me by my own son. She even said you offered to pay for her retreat, said you insisted she needed a break from caregiving. Caregiving. As if occasionally stopping by to criticize my cooking and reorganize my pillows counted as care. Never gave permission, I said, check business portal, 8 months of theft. Mom, please, you're recovering from a stroke. This isn't the time for wild accusations. Natalie said you might have some paranoia, that it's common after neurological events. The therapist was looking concerned, watching my heart rate spike on the monitor. I forced myself to breathe slowly. Michael, I said, each word careful. She used corporate card, federal crime. Has your name on account too? That landed. I heard his sharp intake of breath. What do you mean, my name? Authorized user? You helped after Dad died. If she used card without permission, you could be implicated. Silence stretched between us. I could hear him thinking, calculating, probably remembering all the times Natalie had handled their finances, had access to his passwords, had assured him she was managing everything. She showed me texts, he said weakly. Screenshots where you told her to treat herself, to use the company card for her trip. Never sent those texts. Mom, check my phone. Records. Check with phone company. She faked them. Another long pause. I'll look into it, he said finally. But Mom, if this is some kind of confusion from the stroke, then you'll find I'm right either way. I ended the call with the therapist's help. She was watching me with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Family troubles? She asked gently. I managed half a smile with the working side of my face. Family crimes. That afternoon, I had my lawyer's number written on a card, ready for when my speech improved enough to make the call. Because Michael might be in denial, but the evidence didn't lie. And Natalie's Dubai paradise was about to become her last taste of freedom. 3 weeks later, I was released from rehabilitation. Mobile enough with a walker, clear enough in speech to be understood, though I still slurred when tired. Michael picked me up, his face drawn with attention that hadn't been there before. He'd been doing his own investigating, I could tell. The way he avoided my eyes, the way he gripped the steering wheel. Natalie's back, he said quietly. She came back 2 days ago from wherever she was. She won't tell me where exactly, says she needed time to process your stroke, that she was traumatized by seeing it happen. He laughed bitterly. She's been acting like nothing happened, like she didn't disappear with your credit card and max it out in Dubai. She's at your house? I asked. She's pretending everything's normal. Even said she prepared some things for your return. Grab bars, accessibility stuff. Like she's been the caring daughter-in-law all along. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I haven't confronted her yet. I wanted you there. I wanted her to look you in the eye. But we didn't go to my house. He turned into his own driveway. Michael, she said you'd be confused, he muttered. Said to bring you here first to show you something. My pulse quickened. He helped me out, up the stairs, through their perfect front door with its seasonal wreath that Natalie had probably paid for with my money. The house was immaculate, staged like a magazine spread. But Michael led me past the living room, past the kitchen, to Charles's old study. The one I'd given them furniture for. The one where Natalie had spent all those hours organizing. I need to show you something, he said, voice strange. Natalie said if you came here making accusations, I should show you this. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents, medical documents, psychiatric evaluations with my name on them, dated 6 months ago, diagnoses of early dementia, paranoid delusions, financial incompetence, each one signed by doctors I'd never seen, from clinics I'd never visited. She said, "You've been getting treatment," Michael said quietly, "that you didn't want me to know, that the stroke was probably related to your condition." I stood there, gripping my walker, staring at forgeries that could have destroyed me. Professional, convincing forgeries. "Michael," I said clearly, "I have never seen these doctors." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "She has receipts, appointment cards. She said you were in denial." "Then call them," I said. "Call these doctors. Right now." He hesitated, then pulled out his phone, dialed the first number on the evaluation. It rang. Then, "The number you have dialed is not in service." He tried the second. Same message. The third. Disconnected. His face went pale. "Mom, Keep looking," I said. He opened more drawers, found more folders, financial planning documents with my signature forged, power of attorney paperwork, partially completed, waiting for a final notarization, property transfer documents with post-it notes in Natalie's handwriting, after commitment hearing and expedite once declared incompetent, and then in the bottom drawer, the masterpiece. Not a timeline of future plans, but a scorecard of past attempts, handwritten in Natalie's distinctive script. January, increased sodium in all meals, no reaction. February, switched BP meds, she noticed had to abort. March, considered fall risk staging, too obvious. April, new med switch successful, she seems unaware. May, blood pressure spiking, getting close. June 15th, finally, stroke at dinner, card acquired, Dubai, here I come. Beside June 15th, she'd drawn a little smiley face and champagne glasses. Michael sank into his father's old leather chair, the timeline in his shaking hands. "The stroke," he whispered. She called it perfect timing. I stood there, leaning on my walker, watching my son's world collapse. "She knew I had high blood pressure," I said. "Every Sunday dinner at my house for 3 years, every holiday, every family gathering where she insisted on helping in the kitchen, kept serving me sodium-loaded meals when you weren't looking, switching my medications during her helpful visits to organize my pill box. I thought I was taking my blood pressure pills. The hospital said my levels were dangerously uncontrolled for weeks before the stroke." "No," he said. "She wouldn't." "She would," I said, and she did. The house felt different now, not like a magazine spread, but like a crime scene. Every perfect surface hiding something rotten. Every carefully placed object part of a woman's plan to erase me from my own life. Michael was still staring at the timeline, at that cheerful exclamation point after my incident. His wife hadn't just stolen from me. She'd tried to orchestrate my destruction, and she'd almost succeeded. Natalie returned from Dubai 2 days after Michael called me. She didn't tell him she was coming back, just showed up at their house with a tan, a new designer bag, and the audacity to pretend she'd been at her sister's house in Boston the whole time. Michael didn't pick her up from the airport. She took an Uber, arriving at their house to find me sitting in her pristine living room, no longer needing the walker, just a cane propped beside me. She walked in glowing tanned, wearing a silk dress I recognized from a $4,000 charge labeled client meeting attire. The diamond necklace from her shopping spree caught the light. She froze when she saw me, then recovered with that practiced smile. "Susan, you're walking. This is wonderful." "Hello, Natalie," I said, my voice clear and steady. The speech therapy had worked wonders, especially when fueled by rage. "How was Dubai?" Her smile flickered. "It was restorative. I really needed that break. Caregiving can be so exhausting. I imagine spending $144,000 in a single day would be exhausting." The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Michael emerged from the kitchen and her eyes went to him, calculating, trying to read what he knew. "Michael, honey, your mom seems confused." "Sit down," he said quietly. "We need to talk." I had prepared everything. Not a folder this time, but a full presentation. Charles would have been proud. Laptop connected to their smart TV, every receipt, every screenshot, every forged document displayed in high definition. I'd even created a spreadsheet showing the timeline of charges against her Instagram posts. Color-coded, categorized, irrefutable. "Before we begin," I said, pulling out my phone, "I should mention that I've already spoken with my attorney, also with the FBI's fraud division. They were very interested in the international wire transfers and the forged medical documents. Apparently, that combination elevates this to quite a serious federal case." Natalie's tan seemed to fade. "You're threatening me?" "No," I said. "I'm showing you what you've done. Threats would imply you have a choice in what happens next. You don't. The only question is whether you cooperate or not." I clicked to the first slide, her face from the Dubai selfie, blown up on their 65-inch screen. That mocking smile, that champagne glass, that stranger's hand on her shoulder. "Let's start with your wellness retreat," I said. "Or should I call him Mr. Anderson? That's the name you used on the booking, isn't it?" She turned to Michael. "This is insane. She's having an episode. The stroke you called perfect timing in your handwritten timeline," Michael said, his voice hollow. "The one that happened after you switched her medications." I clicked to the next slide, the timeline in her handwriting, photographed in high resolution, that smiley face next to my medical emergency enlarged for emphasis. Natalie stood up. "I don't have to listen to this." "Actually, you do," I said, clicking again, "because this next slide shows the FBI fraud report I'm filing tomorrow, unless we come to an agreement tonight." She sat back down, her perfect posture finally cracking. The designer dress suddenly looked like costume jewelry on a scared woman who just realized the show was over. I clicked through the slides methodically, each one a nail in her carefully constructed coffin. "Let's trace your movements, shall we? June 15th, 6 p.m., my stroke. You rode in the ambulance, so devoted. 6:17 p.m., you stole my corporate card from my purse while telling the nurses you were securing my valuables. 11 p.m., first-class ticket to Dubai purchased at the airport. Midnight private jet charter to ensure you'd make your connection." Click, security footage from the hospital lobby I'd obtained, showing her leaving with my purse. But my favorite discovery is this. The screen showed her Instagram story posted from the Emirates lounge. "Living my best life finally. Blessed your new beginnings, what a doesn't know, tagged with Alexander Forsyth." "Alexander Forsyth," I said clearly. "Married, 3 children. Met him at the Children's Hospital Gala 2 years ago, didn't you? The same one where you were supposedly networking for Michael's startup, but you were networking for yourself. He's been texting you ever since. His wife, Margaret, probably doesn't know about his business trips to Miami that coincidentally matched your spa weekends." Her face went white. "You contacted him?" "His real estate holdings are public record, as is his marriage to Margaret Sullivan Forsyth for 23 years. The same Margaret who's now very interested in why her husband flew to Dubai the same night you did." I pulled out my phone, showed her a screenshot. She was very grateful for the evidence. "Apparently, you weren't his first affair, but you were his most expensive. You want to know the ironic part? I continued. If you'd just taken the money and run, you might have gotten away with it. But you couldn't resist gloating, sending me that selfie, posting your stories, leaving a digital trail of evidence because you thought I was too weak to follow it. Click. Her WhatsApp messages with Alexander planning to meet when the opportunity arose. No mention of specific dates because she was waiting for something to happen to me. The stroke wasn't part of your plan, I said, but it was the opportunity you'd been prepared for. All those months of switching my medications, you were trying to trigger something. Heart attack, stroke, catastrophic confusion, anything that would incapacitate me. And when it finally happened, you were ready. Card in hand, lover on standby, exit strategy activated. Natalie's hands were clenched in her lap. Those were misunderstandings. You thought very carefully, I interrupted, clicking to the next slide. Because here's the interesting part. Every single charge was entered into our system between 1 and 3 a.m. while Michael was sleeping, using passwords you obtained when you were helping organize my files. Michael made a sound like he'd been punched. I clicked again. But my favorite discovery is this. The screen showed her travel booking. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, traveling to Dubai, booked 3 months ago. Tell me, Natalie, who is Mr. Anderson? Because I know it's not your husband sitting next to you. Her face went white. That's not what? Not the man in your selfies? The one in the golden robe with his hand on your thigh? Click. The video she'd sent me, frozen on a frame of them kissing. The one you were toasting with while your actual husband thought you were at a wellness retreat? It's not what it looks like, she said desperately. He's just a friend, a business contact. A business contact you've been seeing for 6 months? I clicked to a new slide I hadn't shown Michael yet. Screenshots from a WhatsApp conversation I'd managed to recover from the metadata of her photos. Pet names, heart emojis, plans to meet in Dubai, plans for after, when she'd have resolved her situation by August. Michael stood up abruptly, walked to the window. His shoulders were shaking. How? He asked without turning around. How did I not see any of this? Because she was very good, I said, not taking my eyes off Natalie. She picked you specifically, Michael. That charity gala 3 years ago, the one where you met, she knew exactly who you were, the shy son of successful business owners, recently bereaved, socially awkward, trusting. Click. A photo from that gala, one I'd found on the charity's website. Natalie in the background, watching Michael from across the room. She studied you, studied us, learned our weaknesses. Yours was loneliness. Mine was supposed to be age. Stop, Natalie said, please. Like you stopped when you switched my medications? I asked. Click. Photos of my pill bottles before and after. The hospital ran tests. My blood pressure medication was replaced with caffeine pills. My blood thinners with vitamins. For weeks before my stroke, you were deliberately destabilizing my health. I didn't mean for what? For me to have a stroke? Or just a small medical emergency? Something that would make me seem frail? Make Michael more amenable to power of attorney? Click. The forged medical documents. Dr. Harrison at the Clinton Memory Center, Dr. Patel at Riverside Psychiatric. Both fictional, both with signatures you traced from real doctors at other hospitals. I had a handwriting expert verify it. Would you like to see his report? She was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone caught. You don't understand, she said. I grew up with nothing. Watching people like you with your businesses and your houses and your perfect families, I deserved something good to happen to me. So you decided to steal it? I asked. To slowly poison me? To destroy my relationship with my son? To humiliate me while I was lying in a hospital bed learning to speak again? Click. The final Dubai selfie. Her mocking message underneath. This is what you sent to a woman 17 minutes after she'd had a stroke. Spending hubby's inheritance early. Don't die before I get back, Susan, with a kiss emoji. Michael turned from the window. His face was devastated. You knew I was at the hospital with her. You knew she'd had a stroke. And you sent that? I was drunk, Natalie said weakly. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I said, just like you meant every line of this. Click. The timeline again, her handwriting, her plan. January. Established pattern of confusion. You started telling Michael I was repeating myself when I wasn't. February. Document medication errors. You switched my pills and then expressed concern about my mistakes. March. You considered staging a fall, but decided it was too risky. How thoughtful of you to spare me a broken hip. I stood up, leaning on my cane, moving closer to where she sat. April. Begin financial takeover. That's when the theft accelerated. May. Your Dubai wellness retreat with Mr. Anderson. June. My stroke, which you called perfect timing with an exclamation point and a smiley face. July was supposed to be the competency hearing. August, full control of my estate. I was standing directly in front of her now. But you made one mistake, Natalie. You assumed I'd die, or at least be too damaged to fight back. You thought a 71-year-old woman who just had a stroke would be easy to erase. I smiled, the same smile I'd given her in all those family dinners where she dismissed me. Surprise? I returned to my seat, pulled out a manila envelope, and placed it on the coffee table between us. You have two choices, I said, my voice calm as a judge delivering a verdict. Option 1, you sign this confession acknowledging your unauthorized use of the Whitmore and Associates corporate account. You agree to repay every penny, $211,000, including the charges from before Dubai, over the next 5 years, monthly installments of $3,500. You'll also sign a restraining order agreeing to have no contact with me or any remaining family members. Natalie stared at the envelope like it might bite her. 200,000? But you said that was just Dubai and the obvious theft from the last 8 months. But I went back further. 2 years, actually. Every suspicious charge, every client dinner that happened to match your social calendar, every business expense that ended up on your Instagram. It's all documented, all traceable, all criminal. And option 2? She asked, though her voice suggested she already knew. Option 2 is simpler. I file the FBI report tomorrow morning. Wire fraud across international borders, identity theft, forgery of medical documents, attempted elder abuse, tax fraud for the false business expenses, criminal impersonation of a corporate officer. I paused, letting each charge land. Your new friend, Mr. Anderson, will probably be questioned too. I'm sure his wife will find that interesting considering he's been traveling as your husband. She went even paler. You contacted him? His real name is David Morrison, married, 2 kids, works for an investment firm in Connecticut, the same firm that handles some of our old corporate accounts, which is how you met him, isn't it? At that conference Michael sent you to last year, the one where you were supposed to be networking for his startup? I pulled out my phone, showed her a screenshot. His wife, Melissa, already knows about Dubai. I felt she deserved the truth. She was very grateful for the evidence. Natalie looked like she might vomit. You destroyed my life. No, Michael said from where he stood. You destroyed ours. He walked over, picked up the confession papers, signed them. Michael, please, I love you. You targeted me, he said, voice breaking. Susan's right. You picked me at that gala like I was a mark. The shy, awkward guy with the rich parents, easy to manipulate, easy to isolate from his mother, easy to fool. That's not true. Then why did you research our family's net worth before you ever spoke to me? Why did you tell your friend Cheryl, and I quote from her text, I found my lottery ticket the night we met? I pulled out another paper. Cheryl was very helpful once she learned about the theft. Apparently, you've been bragging to her for years about your long-term plan. She kept the texts, including the one where you said, the mother-in-law will be gone soon and then it's all mine. Natalie was cornered and she knew it. If I sign this, I'll have nothing. I'll be ruined. You'll have your freedom, I said. That's more than you left me with when I was lying in that hospital bed, unable to speak, watching you mock me from Dubai. She picked up the pen with shaking hands. I need a lawyer. You have 24 hours to have it reviewed, I said, but the offer expires tomorrow at noon. After that, I go to the authorities with everything. She signed her name on the first page, then stopped. The divorce, she said to Michael. If I sign this, the divorce is happening regardless, he said. But if you sign this and leave quietly, I won't add the attempted murder charge for switching my mother's medications. The medical examiner said that could be prosecuted as attempted homicide given the stroke. That broke her. She signed every page, every line, her designer persona crumbling with each signature. When she finished, I took the papers, placed them back in the envelope. Your belongings will be packed and sent to wherever you're staying, Michael said. You have 1 hour to get what you need tonight. I'll be watching. She stood on unsteady legs, the diamonds around her neck catching the light one last time. I hope you're happy, she said to me. You won. No, I said, thinking of the months of recovery ahead. The relationship with my son that needed rebuilding. The trust that had been shattered. Nobody won. But at least now, we can stop losing. She left without another word, her heels clicking on the hardwood like a countdown to her new life. A life without my money, my family, or the illusion that she could erase people who stood in her way. She returned the next morning at 11:47 a.m., 13 minutes before the deadline. No designer dress this time, just jeans and a wrinkled blouse, her hair pulled back, her face bare of makeup. She looked younger, smaller, like the mask had finally come off. A lawyer followed her in, a nervous man who kept adjusting his tie. My client has reviewed the terms, he said, pulling out the documents. She's prepared to sign with one modification. No modifications, I said from my chair, my cane across my lap like a scepter. The deadline is noon. The terms are non-negotiable. He looked at Natalie, who nodded slightly. Then we need assurance that all evidence will be destroyed upon completion of payments. No, I said simply. The evidence stays in a safety deposit box. Insurance against any future attempts at revenge or contact. Your client forfeits the right to privacy when she committed fraud. Natalie finally spoke, her voice hoarse. 5 years is a long time. What if I can't make the payments? Then you'll face the criminal charges we're graciously allowing you to avoid, I said. $3,500 a month is generous considering you spent 3 times that on a handbag. Michael sat beside me, silent but present. His wedding ring was already gone. The divorce papers were on the table beside the confession. 2 endings for the price of one. I need you to know, Natalie said suddenly, looking at Michael. The beginning wasn't fake. I did care about you. You cared about my trust fund, he said quietly. You cared about my mother's business. You cared about inheriting what my father built. But you never cared about me. She signed the confession, each page, every initial. The notary my lawyer had brought stamped each one, making it official, legally binding, irreversible. Then the divorce papers. No contest, no alimony, no claims to marital assets. She was leaving with exactly what she'd brought. Nothing but her schemes and her failure. The payments start immediately, I said, handing her the account information. First one is due in 30 days. Miss a single payment, and this goes to the FBI. I understand, she whispered. One more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. This is a recording of you from 3 months ago. You didn't know I had a Ring camera in my kitchen. I played the audio. Her voice, clear and cruel. Once the old bitch is in a home, we can sell everything. She's basically senile already. Michael's too stupid to notice I'm helping her along. Michael flinched. Natalie closed her eyes. I'm keeping that too, I said. Along with the 18 other recordings of you discussing my mental decline while you were actively causing it. My favorite is the one where you laugh about switching my pills. You actually called it genius. The lawyer was packing up quickly, clearly wanting to leave. We're done here, he said. My client will comply with all terms. Yes, I said, Standing with effort, but standing nonetheless. We are definitely done. Natalie turned at the door, looked back once. For what it's worth, you were a worthy opponent. I wasn't your opponent, I said. I was your victim. Until I decided not to be. She left for the last time, the woman who'd tried to steal my life, walking away with nothing but debt and disgrace. The door closed with a soft click. Michael and I sat in the silence that followed, two survivors of a 3-year war we hadn't known we were fighting. Outside, life continued. Inside, ours could finally begin again. 6 months later, I sold the house. Not because of the memories, but because I didn't need that much space anymore. The stroke had taught me something about weight. Not the physical kind, but the weight of maintaining things that no longer served me. Charles would have understood. He always said the best design was about knowing what to leave out. Michael helped me move into a 2-bedroom condo overlooking the river. Modern, secure, everything on one floor. No stairs to navigate, no garden to maintain, just clean lines and water views. He came for dinner every Thursday, and we were learning to talk again. Really talk, not the performed conversations we'd had when Natalie was directing the show. I got the payment notification, he told me one evening, checking his phone. She's never missed one. Natalie had found work somewhere, somehow. The payments arrived like clockwork, $3,500 returning to the account she'd plundered. I didn't know where she was living or what she was doing. I didn't care. She was a ghost we'd exorcised, paying rent on her haunting. The investigation had revealed more than we'd known. 3 other men she'd been cultivating, 2 other families she'd researched. Michael hadn't been her first target, just her most successful one, until he wasn't. The FBI kept her on a watch list now. She'd never pull this con again. My speech came back completely. The physical therapy worked miracles, or maybe spite did. By Christmas, you'd never know I'd had a stroke, except for a slight drag in my right foot when I was tired. I called it my tell, the reminder that I'd survived something that was meant to destroy me. Michael was seeing someone new, a pediatric nurse named Amy who brought homemade cookies and actually ate my pot roast. She laughed at my stories instead of recording them as evidence. When she looked at Michael, she saw him, not his inheritance. She's nothing like her, he said once unnecessarily. We both knew there'd never be another Natalie. We'd learned to spot the signs, the too bright smile, the calculated kindness, the questions that probed for weak spots. I kept one photo from those years, not of Natalie. She'd been edited out. Just Michael and me at his father's company anniversary party, both of us smiling, unaware of the storm coming. I kept it as a reminder. Even good people can be deceived. But deception doesn't have to be permanent. Sometimes, if you're strong enough, smart enough, and angry enough, you can rewrite the ending. Now I'm curious about you. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever gone through something like this? Let me know in the comments. And while you're here, I've left 2 of my other stories on screen. I promise they'll surprise you. Thanks for watching all the way to the end.